Hi, everyone, and peace be upon you all, and wish you're doing just fine. This is Contemporary Understanding the Quran. My name is Marwan Rad, and we are in the process of reading the Surah Al-Baqarah, and we've reached verse number 217. So we continue together. Fighting is prescribed for you, and you dislike it. But it is possible that you dislike a thing which is good for you, and that you love a thing which is bad for you, but you know not. This is kind of a proverb in the sense that man would love to do something, but it's not good for him, and would love to avoid something which is good for him. That is, opposite possibilities, and could be good thing in one that we reject, could be bad thing in the other which we want and desire. But this is about fighting. You know the story. The Meccan forbade Muhammad and his followers of practicing their freedom. They're free of speech, free of prayer, free of whatever, even moving around and so on. So, in the course of time, they had to defend themselves. In other words, they had to fight the Meccan. So God is telling them, fighting is to be prescribed on you, which is not a good thing, but consider in your mind that maybe a bad thing gonna give you good result, and a good thing gonna give you bad result. This is the whole meaning of it. They ask thee concerning fighting in the prohibited month. Say, fighting therein is a grave offense, but graver is it in the sight of Allah to prevent access to the path of Allah, to deny Him, to prevent access to the sacred mosque, and drive out its members. Maybe your followers of Muhammad will ask you, how about fighting in the sacred month? You know, the sacred month, one of the 4 months of the year, whereby it is, as the word sacred means you shouldn't fight, at least, especially in this meaning. So if they ask you this, say, well, it's not advisable, it's not good, but if you have to fight in it, yes, fight and go ahead and don't be afraid and stuff like this. Why? Because preventing people from doing their duty or standing between the believers and God is something even worse than fighting in the sacred month. This is the rule. Okay, so tumult and oppression are worse than slaughter. Okay, this is exactly what I said at last before I read this, which means slaughter is okay. Fight one another, is one's gonna kill the other, or probably both of them are gonna kill each other, stuff like this. But tumult and oppression, which is in Arabic zulm and fitna, it means provoking and corrupting and pushing and soliciting into killing and into bad things and so on. It's even worse than slaughter. Nor will they cease fighting you until they turn your back from your faith, if they can. And those who are going to fight you in the sacred place, they will never let down until they either make you revert to their religion or give up on your faith completely, if they can. And if any of you turn back from their faith and die in unbelief, their works will bear no fruit, in this life and in the hereafter. They will be companions of the fire and will abide therein. And God is telling us, or telling the followers of Muhammad, and whoever gives up on his religion, turn his back on religion, or die within unbelief, which means stop believing in God, okay, then he will bear hellfire. We'll continue. Okay. Those who believed and those who suffered exile and fought and strove and struggled in the path of Allah, they have the hope of the mercy of Allah, and Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. Okay, in the course of fighting, God is telling the believers, okay, that, oh, you believers, amongst you those who left their homes, were exiled from Mecca because of the persecution of the Meccans, and you forced yourself into hardship, and you struggled in the path, in the cause, for the cause of Allah. Make sure that your hope or your struggle will be compensated, because Allah is full of mercy and he will forgive all your sins and will be merciful on you. They ask thee concerning wine and gambling. Now about wine, alcohol, and gambling, all kinds of gambling, which means putting bets on this, making bet on that, and winning and losing, and in a kind of unlawful way. This, say, O Muhammad, say, in them, in both alcohol and gambling, great sin and some profit for man, which means they are bad, but some man can profit out of them. How? We all know, like selling the alcohol, like winning in gamble, so there is some profit, but both of them are sin, which means bad. Alcohol, can you lose your mind and you don't know what to say or what to do. Gambling, you lose your money and fortune. Probably you have a family, you can't feed them anymore, something like this. They ask me how much they are to spend. Say, what is beyond your needs? Thus does Allah make clear to you his signs, in order that you may consider. And if they ask you about zakat, about giving, helping the needy, giving away, or the alms, or those things, if they ask you about this, how much should they spend? You tell them, whatever exceed your needs. Which means if you make 100, let's say, $, and you only need $90 until the next salary or the next course, and that you can give away $10. It's as simple as this. And Allah telling you this so you can consider and reconsider giving. That's the idea. They're bearing on this life and the hereafter. They ask thee concerning orphans. Say, the best thing to do is what is for their good. If you mix their affairs with yours, they are your brethren, but Allah knows the man who means mischief from the man who means good. Now about the orphans. If O Muhammad, you're asked about this subject and its consequences here on earth and thereafter, you tell them that the best thing that you can do for those orphans is it should be for their own goods, which means orphans are supposedly or meant to be minors. Okay, they don't know probably what to do, what to say, how to run business, how. So if you are in charge of an orphan, make sure that you do their things as you do yours in the sense that for their own good. And if you mix your business with theirs, let's say the orphan has $100,000 inheritance, okay, and you have another 100,000 for yourself. Now, if you should mix both together, you have to be fair. If you mix whatever your fortune with theirs, you have to be fair. Treat them like brother, which means equally. But Allah knows the man who means mischief from the man who means good, which means, and be careful, because Allah knows if you trick or if you really act fairly. And if Allah had wished, He could have put you into difficulties, which means Allah will help you to execute this mission. And should Allah want, He can complicate the mission to you. But indeed, Allah wants the good for you, for all people. And Allah is exalted in power and wise, knows what He's doing. Okay. Now, it's another subject about marriage and divorce. Few verses we're running. Do not marry unbelieving women until they believe. A slave woman who believes is better than an unbelieving woman, even though she allure you. Nor marry your girls to unbelievers until they believe. A man slave who believes is better than an unbeliever, even though he allure you. Unbelievers do but beckon you to the fire, but Allah beckons you by His grace to the garden of bliss and forgiveness and makes His signs clear to mankind that they receive admonition. Well, it's an interesting verse in the sense of regulating an issue of marriage. That is, of course, God prefers believers, if I may say, on unbelievers. Why? Because believers have a good relation with God, and they do their duties and they follow the guidance of God, which is God initiated and initially wanted to them. And the unbelievers are kind of the opposite. So in preference, God is asking the believer to marry a believer like them, which makes sense, because raising family and children should be in an environment that is uniform, if I may say, and that is useful. If there's one believer and one unbeliever, there are two contradictions, and you can imagine, the environment in which the children will be raised. Contradictions. So that doesn't mean that God discriminates. It has nothing to do with this, because here we're talking about religious issues. We're talking about piety. We're talking about prudence of fear and fear of God, and etc. Like obeying, like being guided, being on the right path, and so on. So better marry a believer, whether a man or a woman, which is better than marry an unbeliever. That doesn't mean the other is forbidden. It says better. And in the course of preference, so even a slave who is a believer can be, which is normal and makes sense, better than an unbeliever in the eye of Allah, of course. That's what it means altogether. So, okay, in that sense, Allah always invite us, to His garden, to His paradise, and whatever He advises us to do, its consequences help us to get nearer to paradise. That is the general meaning. They ask thee concerning women's courses. Now, women courses, it means their biological status during the month, which is the menstruation and the period in the month in which, like during 7 days, the woman can can have this state whereby she bleeds a little and she suffers some headache and etc. So they ask me concerning women's courses. Say, O Muhammad, say, they are a hurt and a pollution. Now, I don't like these two words used by the translator, but I'll explain what it means exactly versus the Arabic. In Arabic, it says, it's an adha. Adha in Arabic, it means it's it's closer to hurt, but it's not really hurt, because hurt is caused by someone who does something to you, and then he or whatever he did hurts you. Now, this is the natural sequence of the woman in a month, whereby she had this kind of course, and it hurts the woman, of course, but it's natural. It's not caused by someone in particular. That's why, especially the word pollution, I don't approve of. Although we all know that nobody wants to deal with blood in kind of discourse or intercourse or whatever. Nevertheless, from women in their courses, the advice and the medical advice and the moral advice and whatever kind of advice is during this course, which means during this week, when the woman bleeds because of the menstruation period, stay away from her, okay? Do not approach them until they are clean. We all agree on this. Especially there are perverts, there are probably exclusions, there are adventurers, there are whatever. But the general rule is this. But when they have purified themselves, you may approach them in any manner, time or place ordained for you by Allah. After that, you can deal with her, you can intercourse, you can mate, you can do whatever you want in the way of Allah. I mean, the way Allah ordained to you. And this one is particularly and precisely clear. That is to deal with her by the natural organ, bluntly, not from behind. It's as simple as this. For Allah loves those who turn to Him constantly, and He loves those who keep themselves pure and clean. Why is telling us this? Okay, the AIDS is caused probably not 100%, but caused mostly by that kind of intercourse. Okay, especially amongst gays and so on. So God wants us to be clean and pure, and God would appreciate those who follow the guidance. This is really an interesting verse in the sense that touches some, well, I would say, medical aspects. Of course, we know that now. Some people follow it, some people don't. Now, your wives are as a tilth unto you, so approach your tilth when or how you will. But do some good act for your souls beforehand, and fear Allah, and know that you are to meet Him in the hereafter, and give these good tidings to those who believe. Aside from the menstruation period, your women, God is telling us as men, your women are yours, like your crop. You can deal with your crop, however, whenever, not in particularly, how may I say, openly, really, however, and whatever you want, and so on. No, but it means it's your right to have, to play the adult games with your wife, but always in the good sense, with a good spirit, and fear Allah, because you're meeting Allah, and Allah will ask you on that day, why did you do this? Why did you do that? If you did something wrong, and He will compensate you if otherwise. And make not Allah's name an excuse in your oaths against doing good or acting rightly or making peace between persons, for Allah is one who hears and knows all things. Here is very interesting, and it's a reminder that you shouldn't lie. Lie is prohibited in Islam. Lying is prohibited in Islam. And lying makes part of giving or taking an oath and not keeping one's words or one's oath, and so on. So God is telling us, don't use the word of Allah by saying, in the name of Allah, I shall do this, I shall do that, and then you don't. Allah doesn't like that, and Allah is advising us to be straightforward in dealing with persons, and not to use His name in oaths and not keeping our words, because Allah knows when you do that. Allah knows. You can't hide yourself or hide that from Allah. Allah will not call you to account for thoughtlessness in your oath, but for the intention in your hearts, and He is oft forgiving, most forbearing. On top of that, Allah will not will not blame you, if you want, for simply giving an oath. More importantly, that the oath coming from the mouth, if it meets your intention in your heart, then it is the act be judged for. So be aware, and don't forget that God is oft forgiving and forbearing as well. He's merciful. For those who take an oath for abstention from their wives, a waiting for 4 months is ordained. If then they return, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. You see, here is regulating the, how may I say, the life of couples after marriage, of course. It can happen that they have quarrels, they fight for a stupid thing or for a bigger thing and whatever. And probably the man would say, I will never touch you again, or something like that. I don't want you anymore, some negative thing. So Allah is telling us, okay, uh, uh, يعني, this is what you say is not, it doesn't come in first. What you intend is what coming first. This is why. If you say this to your wife with, out of rage, out of anger, out of something like this, which is not really from your heart, because you really love her, you don't want to really be rude, that much rude with her, or probably exempt yourself from treating her like a wife. So God is all forgiving, which means you're not taken to the letter by this kind of oath. One more point I think I missed as a lesson. Yet God forgives men who do this, but as a lesson, unless divorce is the intention, then he should wait 4 months. That is a lesson to man, so next time he will not do something like that. Okay? Now, but if their intention is firm for divorce, now the other possibility, I mean, if they don't intend any bad thing like divorce or anything, it's okay, but they have to be ordained for 4 months, stay away from their wife. But if they intended divorce in their oath, Allah hears and knows all things, which means, okay, you can do that, and Allah will be watching this and will be, let's say, kind of escorting you to do this if you want. Now, divorced women shall wait concerning themselves for 3 monthly periods, nor is it lawful for them to hide what Allah has created in their womb, if they have faith in Allah and the last day. This is important in the sense that if divorce is going to happen, and if the woman is pregnant, kind of, that's what the verse means, then the woman should say so, should not hide this information or the truth, actually. Why? Because, first of all, because they should not lie, they should have faith in Allah, in the sense that even this is going to be regulated, and we will see. And their husbands have the better right to take them back in that period if they wish for reconciliation. Now, that period is 3 months, during which, after the divorce, I mean, after claiming divorce or swearing to divorce and so on, a period of 3 months to make sure if the woman lost her menstruation, so it means possibly she's pregnant. So during the 3-month period, it'll be ascertained, it'll be confirmed whether or not. So this is why, to know exactly what to do. And their husband, if they wish, during this period of 3 months, if they wish to come back on their words and on their act and on the divorce, it's fine for reconciliation. If their husband have the better, their husband have the better right to take them back in that period if they wish for reconciliation. If there's an intention for reconciliation, their husband are, they deserve to have a second chance in that sense. And women shall have rights similar to the rights against them according to what is equitable. But men have a degree of advantage over them, and Allah is exalted in power. Now, this is a little controversial, and I'm going to explain it. Okay. Well, apparently when we read it, we think that men have a degree over women. It's not in that sense, okay? Only in this, and this is wrongly understood and wrongly concepted and so on in Islam and by Muslims and probably by any other. Why? Because they think that only man can divorce if he so wishes, which is not the truth. Woman can ask for divorce as well, and this is the equal rights. But the advantage here is, in those days, women were keeping the house and keeping the children and raising the family and doing the homework and all. Man was doing the work outside, which means suffering, let's say, more or struggling to gain the bread and so on and on. So in what he spends, the advantage is exactly here, what he spends. Now, talking about divorce, we're coming to it. Which is as well a concept misunderstood in Islam. God says in this verse, a divorce is only permissible twice. I personally know, and we have the belief, that 3 times divorce, which means he can divorce her first time and bring her back. He can divorce her the second time and bring her back. And he can divorce her the 3rd time. Now, he can't bring her back until she marries another. It'll be detailed here in the verse, but I'm just explaining it ahead to make it easy when I read it. And this is misconceived in Islam, by Muslims mainly, and of course by non-Muslims as well. The verse is very clear. God says, a divorce is only permissible twice. I don't know where they brought the 3rd time, and this is a real problem in Islam. The jurisdiction is in chaos, in upside down. That's why I don't count on it. I only read the Quran, and whatever I understood, it's easy to understand because it's clear. It's not that simple linguistically, but it is understandable. It's as easy as so. Here it says only twice. After that, the parties should either hold together on equitable terms or separate with kindness, which means the second time, if he swears, if they want to divorce, okay, now they have to separate in kindness, which means no fighting, no complication, no whatever, especially if they have children, because that will cause misery to the whole family, particularly to children. It is not lawful for you, men, to take back any of your gifts from your wives, except when both parties fear that they would be unable to keep the limits ordained by Allah. Which means, we know the habit, men give some present and gift to his wife when he first married her. Now he wants to divorce. He has no right to take back any of those things. But if she, and this will be explained, but if she wants to get rid of him because he's giving her a hard time not to divorce her, not now, not this, something like that, especially concerning children, you know, those complications are coming up in couples, in life of couples. So in that case, if she gives up on those gifts, it's all right. It's okay, as we say, just to have a solution, to finish with this altogether. If you judges do indeed feel that they would be unable to keep the limits ordained by Allah, there is no blame on either of them if she gives something for her freedom. That's exactly what I said. I mean, just to get rid of him, to have her freedom, she can give away whatever she wants, which is, I may say, from her own will. Probably pressured by him, but she can always refuse to give back any, and the judge will be on her side. These are the limits ordained by Allah, so do not transgress them. Allah is very clear. This is what you should do, O man. Okay? And don't transgress. Don't transgress. It means, well, don't put pressure on, but you know, human being is a human being. If any do transgress the limits ordained by Allah, such person wrong themselves as well as others. So, which means, I mean, whoever contradicts the limits that Allah prescribed, okay, he will be an oppressor. An oppressor have, you know, will be punished somehow. Of course, in the resurrection. I think we're gonna stop here because we exceeded the half an hour limit, and although the subject is not done with yet, but it's okay. So hopefully, by stopping here, that whatever we read was, you know, well acquainted and understood by you, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and I appreciate you listening, and see you soon, inshallah.